Hey YouTube fam, it's Francina Simone, and today I want to talk about how not all books deserve to be published. Now, with this being said, I am talking on both fronts, as in a book that is great and important doesn't necessarily deserve to be published, and a book that is super fucking problematic, but you know, the author worked on it and it's their art and their perspective and we shouldn't have censorship, also doesn't deserve to be published. Nothing deserves to fucking be published. Publishing isn't a game of morality, it is the game of business. This shit that's gonna get published is the shit that's gonna sell. Nobody wants to invest money into a book that isn't gonna make that money back. And trust me, there's plenty of those out there that are happening. And, you know, I'm just gonna throw it out there, like, it's a game of business. Yes, I understand that we want progress in the world, so we want businesses to be more progress oriented so that institutions can change for the better. But at the same time, I am not here for businesses being moral gatekeepers. I'm sorry, y'all, my AC kicked on and that was loud as hell, wasn't it? But like I was saying, I am not here for businesses to be morality, like, gatekeepers. That is a dangerous game to play, because especially in a country where most people are Christian, not saying that Christians are bad, but in a country where most people are Christian, and Christianity in its most religious aspect, time and time again throughout the course of history, being molded and reformed to present to specific ideologies of specific people of said time, has now trickled down to a place where they say gays are bad, and that if you're a cake designer, you don't need to be making cakes for gay weddings. Like, do I really want to live in a church, in a church state? Do I really want to live in a time and in a climate where people base their business practices and their laws off of morality, which changes with the wind, which changes every few decades, what we believe to be right or wrong? Do I really want to give that kind of power over to people who also take my money and who also may or may not hire me to make that money? No. Behind every human atrocity was science or religion that said it was okay. And to top it all off, businesses can't even be trusted to invest in good products and good things. People are dumb, and people run businesses, and they invest things. They aren't trendsetters. There are very few businesses out there who are actual trendsetters, and those people tend to be at usually the top of the hierarchy, and all the other people in between tend to be the people who just try to follow off of trends and make a buck. Publishing is the same way. You get a novel that's a trendsetter, and the next thing you know, over the next 2 to 3 years, every motherfucking book out there either looks like it, sounds like it, talks like it, walks like it. It's because publishing isn't about being trendsetters. They're about following trends. They like to see what trend happens. They wait for someone to make the trend, and then they jump on it. So you know what, people? If you want to be woke, if you want to create the trend by supporting the people who really embody what it is that you love, support the motherfucking individuals. Lift them up. Raise their voices. But don't go out here asking businesses to morally, like, publish or not publish things. Now, I know in the site of censorship, people often bring up, like, the novel Lolita. I saw an article floating around on Twitter not too long ago about, I guess, how the right wing, it was a little clickbaity, but essentially how people who scream censorship when, like, toxic cultures and communities try to dictate what gets put into public consumption or not, that is a form of censorship. It's social censorship. Like, let's not act like we ain't picked that up from the fascist, like, playbook. Like, that's another issue that I got, is when people take from a playbook that's already been used and done over and over again, and they start pulling from that playbook and using them type of tactics, acting like nobody knows what the fuck you doing. Like, it's been done before. I can see the propaganda. I can smell it like fart on a pig. Like, it's right there in front of me. Don't act like you're not doing the goddamn same thing just because your intentions you think are better or morally superior than the opposite or opposing side. Like, we all been through this before. But I digress. I know that the argument for anti-censorship tends to be like, well, Lolita wouldn't be published today if you know, like, we let the public dictate what goes into publishing or what gets published and what doesn't. And I did read that article, and it mentioned that Lolita actually had a hard time getting published back in the 1950s. In fact, they had to go to France to get that shit published, because everybody else was like, no. In fact, I think it didn't get published in Britain until 5 years later after its original publication date, because they were like, fuck your child pornography shit. But the controversy around it is probably what lifted it up over those barriers to be handed out to people. 1, 2, of course it wouldn't be published today because most people don't want to be tied to child pornography. Like, let's be real. Lolita is written from the point of view of a grown-ass man who is both grooming and sexualizing a 12-year-old girl and has sex with her, and I think he has forcible sex with her at one point in time. So it's like, most people don't want to be associated with that because in this day and age, we ain't okay with, like, child molestation and child grooming. So, no, I don't know any editor who has balls enough to put their kiddie porn love on blast like that. No, because these days, you will go to jail. I'm just putting that out there. So yes, like, morally, there are some aspects and some consequences that happen. And like 3 or 4, the only people who still be holding up Lolita are academics who are like, it's great literature. And I'm over here like, the only reason why y'all be holding up these old ass books anyways is because you need a job. Like, let's be honest here. Most people don't give a fuck about these books. All this shit that you call classics are back in the day what they called trash genre fiction. Jane Austen was trash genre romance fiction. Dickens was trash serialized like genre fiction. Lolita was trash explicit like sexual erotica for adult men. Like, let's be honest here. And they'd be like, it's a classic. You just need a job. That's all. You just need to explain why it is that you need a space in this department to explore the history of genre fiction. That's it. I mean, yes, in the context of history, we have had great strides in literature. People have done different things, and it's all interesting and well and done, but still, all we do is hold up a few individuals who did a few special, interesting things, and may or may not have even been the first person to do it. They were just the most popular people of the time to do it, and so their shit stayed around. And that's it. That's the tea. That is the gag. So let's stop acting like somehow Lolita is like the second Bible. I mean, even that is problematic and hodgepodge together. So let's not even act like it's some great fiction or some great piece of fiction. It's just a book. And it just explores, like, some deprived man's mind. And if you like reading shit like that, read it. Nobody gonna judge you. I mean, like, I will, but, you know, you ain't got to know it. You ain't got to advertise that you read it. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, at the end of the day, no book deserves to be published. It's just some people get lucky enough to get their mediocre shit past the gateways. Some people get lucky enough to get their great literature past the gateways. And some people get lucky enough to not get their shit published because if they did, they'd be dragged from here to hell. But at the end of the day, publishing is just a business. And to be honest, self-publishing is changing that anyway. So who deserves to be published? Bitch, you can put your shit up on Amazon with little to no effort. You can put in a lot of effort and still not get nobody to read your shit. Or you can put in a ton of effort, nobody still read your shit. Hell, you can get traditionally published and nobody even know you publish shit. So let's stop acting like these spaces are pure and these spaces are sacred, especially in young adult. Like, let's be honest, teens be on Wattpad anyways and reading fan fiction because half your books are too fucking expensive for them to even afford. Most of them don't go to their public libraries because how the fuck are they supposed to get there? And on top of that, most of the shit that people write are so out of date to what teens even want because publishers buy what they think will sell. And what they think will sell is the shit that adults who read young adult novels are buying. So who deserves to be published? I leave that answer and that question to you, dear reader. Who do you think deserves to be published? Do you think that just because they're important that they should be a push for that? Even if a business isn't going to buy that particularly important book, do you think it still should be out there because it means something to somebody? Does importance triumph over what people value? And I'm not saying that because I think people value things that aren't important. I think if you look at the New York Times bestsellers list, you'll see what's selling. I think if you look at what's on the shelf, what's front face at a bookstore, you'll see what's selling. I think if you turn on the fucking TV or go anywhere where teens are at, you'll see what teens are buying. You'll see what people like to digest in their media. I think it's interesting because on both sides of the argument, people seem to be more interested in fighting than actually seeing what people enjoy. And so they get so caught up in what there's a lack thereof. And I'm not saying that there's a ton of important, diverse books out there. I think that we're making bigger strides than we were. I think that there's more conversations to be had about it. I think that there is more interest in it with the newer generation. I love me some Gen Zers. I love their casual diversity. I love everything about teens these days. But what's interesting to me is the adult conversation that happens in young adult about importance and what deserves to be published or not And who gets to decide that? Because you know what? But it's interesting to me that people want the power to control things like that when they don't even use the power that they have to control themselves. Like, no. If you can't even control yourself, I ain't giving you power to control nothing else. And so I guess that's where I stand on it. Like, nothing deserves anything. Nothing deserves anything in this life. I think you have to fight for what you want by standing and believing in yourself, by being true to yourself, by creating true to yourself. I don't think you need to fight anybody else. I think the only person that we need to fight in lives is ourselves, because we, by all means, sabotage ourselves more than anything else. You triumph when you triumph over yourself. And the idea that you have already lost before you even begun. So that's kind of where I stand. So down below, go ahead and leave your thoughts on that. But also I am doing a Q&A video. So I wanted to tell you guys to leave down below a question that you have for me that you want me to answer. It can be related to anything. I'll answer just about anything except for some really weird fucking questions. Like, if you think it's weird, it probably is, so don't ask it. But yeah, I'm doing a Q&A at some point in the future. So leave a question down below that you want to ask and you want me to answer. And yeah, I will upload that ASAP. So guys, have a great one. I post Tuesdays at 2, Saturdays at 10. I will see you then. TTYL. So talk for now. Bye.